This video is sponsored by Hooktheory. The majority of songs start on the tonic chord, on their home chord. That is to say, if the song was in the key of C major, the song would begin on the chord of C major. But a song doesn't have to begin on the tonic chord. The first chord of a song isn't necessarily the tonic chord, the home chord. For example, many songs begin instead on the fourth chord of the key. Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper is in the key of C major, but begins on the chord F major, the 4 chord. Bad Romance by Lady Gaga is also in the key of C major, but once again starts instead with the 4 chord F. And Walking in Memphis by Mark Cohn is also in the key of C major, but once again begins on the chord of F major instead. Viva La Vida by Coldplay is in the key of A flat major, but begins on the D flat chord, the 4 chord. Betty Davis' Eyes is in the key of F major, but begins not on F, but on the 4th chord of the key, B flat. And for yet another example, Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift is in the key of E major, but doesn't start on the E chord, it starts on the A chord, the 4th chord of the key. I have this thing where I get older, but just never wiser. As you might be able to hear from these songs, starting on the 4th chord of the key instead of the 1, instead of the tonic, instantly creates a sense of forward momentum. Unlike the tonic chord, unlike the 1, the 4 has a tension to it. The 4th chord of the key isn't the most tense in the key, but it certainly isn't at rest, so we have to keep moving forward. We can't just hang out on the 4 chord forever because we want that sense of eventual resolution. So the chord progression is instantly thrown into motion by starting not on the 1 chord, but on the 4 instead. Another chord of the key that many songs begin on is the 2nd chord of the key. For example, All My Loving by the Beatles is in the key of E major, but we don't begin on an E major chord, we instead begin on F sharp minor, the 2nd chord of the key. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Starting on the 2nd chord of the key has a similar effect to starting on the 4th chord of the key. We have this sense of instant tension, but not an unbearable tension, not a tension that needs immediately resolving, but a tension that pushes the song forward with this satisfying sense of momentum. Dancing in the Moonlight also starts on the 2nd chord of the key. As does Love Song by Sarah Bareilles. Typically speaking, the 5th chord of the key is considered to have the most tension. It's the chord that really wants to resolve back to 1. So starting a song off on that chord really injects this instant sense of we need to resolve somewhere else. We can't stay on this opening chord. For example, we can hear that in This Love by Maroon 5, which is in the key of C minor, but doesn't start on the C minor chord. It starts on a G7 chord in first inversion. So the G7 is the 5th chord here. And with the addition of the 7th and the first inversion, we really have this sense of unease, of we need to move forward into the song. Another song that begins on the 5th chord of the key, albeit fleetingly, is Candle in the Wind by Elton John. This song is in the key of E major, but begins on the B chord, the 5th, before working its way down to the E chord. Like we heard there in Candle in the Wind, by not starting on the 1 chord, we have this sense of working our way back to home. The song begins in some far-flung location in the key, and we then have to work our way back to get that satisfaction of the tonic chord. Another great example of this sort of working our way back to the tonic chord is Just the Two of Us. This song is in the key of F minor, but begins on a D flat chord, the 6th chord of the minor key, and we get the sense of journeying back to our point of resolution, the F minor chord. In the minor key, the 6th chord of the key is quite a common place to start if you're not going to start on the tonic chord. Another minor key song to begin on the 6th chord is Crazy in Love by Beyonce and Jay-Z. This song is in the key of D minor, but begins by vamping between B flat, the 6th chord, and G, the 4th chord. And another example of a song beginning on the 6th chord of the minor key is Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. This song is ultimately in the key of A minor, but for the vast majority of it we're pivoting between F and G, the 6th and 7th chords of the key, until we finally get to the tonic chord of A minor in the instrumental bridge. Being able to work out the chords of a song just by hearing it is an incredibly useful skill for any musician. Training your ear to recognise chords just by listening can seem like a really daunting task, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets, and a great tool to make your ear training practice both fun and structured is Chord Crush, the ear training tool from Hooktheory. Chord Crush teaches you how to recognise chords by ear through interactive puzzles that increase in difficulty as you learn. There are various different modes by which you can practice. You can drill into specific chords and chord patterns, or test your skills on audio clips taken from real songs. For a limited time, enjoy 20% off select Hooktheory products, including a yearly Chord Crush premium subscription, by using my unique link in the description. Now, what you might be wondering is, how do we know that the first chord isn't the tonic chord? How do we know, for example, with Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, that this song is in the key of C major, not the key of F major? Because after all, it begins on F, and songs usually start on the chord of their key, of the tonic chord. Well, even though the first chord of a song does certainly contribute to the key that we hear it in, there are other factors involved in what key a piece of music is in. Most importantly, what scale is it using? What set of 7 notes is this song ultimately based on? Time After Time is based on the notes of the C major scale. So even though it begins on the chord F, we know it's in the key of C. But you might be saying, what about modes? Modes are where we have multiple scales that use the same notes but treat a different one as the tonic note. So how do we know that Time After Time is in C major and not F Lydian? F Lydian is a scale that has the exact same notes as C major but treats F as the tonic note. And this is where it does start to become a grey area, because it now becomes about context. The context in which we hear the scale used in Time After Time emphasises C as the point of resolution, as the tonic note, and therefore we perceive this music in the key of C major, not F Lydian. But there is certainly an element of ambiguity here. Whether a song is in the key of C major or F Lydian will always have a sense of subjectivity to it, a flexibility to it. And that's part of why songs that don't begin on their tonic chord have such a curious sound. There's definitely a time at the beginning of hearing one of these songs where we're not completely sure what key we're in, and that creates this really interesting effect, this tonal ambiguity. For example, Lost Woods from Legend of Zelda is ultimately in the key of C major, but we begin on the 4th chord of the key F. And I really think that here, for an extended period of time, it does sound like we're in the key of F Lydian, not C major, because although we're getting notes from the C major scale, they are all underpinned by the chord F and nothing more. So at least for this period, we really kind of are in F Lydian, not C major. But then as the song continues and we get more context, it becomes clearer to our ears that this music is really in the key of C major, not F Lydian, despite the fact that both those scales use the exact same notes. But that's the thing, music is temporal. We experience it not all at once, but bit by bit. So yes, although it is the context that dictates ultimately whether we're in, for example, C major or F Lydian, that context evolves and develops as we're exposed to more and more of the song. Another example of this tonal ambiguity we get when the context of the music is slowly unfolded to us is Close to You, written by Burt Bacharach. This song is ultimately in the key of G major, but we begin on the chord C major. In the Carpenters version of the song, this C major chord is vamped as an intro, so it effectively establishes C major as what our ears assume to be the tonic chord. But then at this point here, when we hit the B major chord, it's like the rug is pulled from underneath our feet because our ears start to realise that we're not actually in the key of C.
Why do birds suddenly appear every time?
And this creates this really tantalising moment when we get this very unusual sounding tonal movement because our ears are reorienting to hear the key of the music differently. Some songs that don't start on the tonic chord feel like they're purposefully stretching out and delaying getting to the tonic chord to really maximise this sense of tonal ambiguity. For example, Deacon Blues by Steely Dan is in the key of G major, but for the first 6 bars that really isn't very clear. We start on the chord C major, which is the 4th chord of the key, but to be honest, it doesn't even really sound like the 4th chord of the key, because during this section of chords, we're winding our way through such an unusual progression that it doesn't really establish any given key as the definite tonic. So, although most songs will begin on their tonic chord, will begin on the chord of their key, they don't have to. They can really start on any chord they like and eventually wind their way to that key. If you can think of any other examples of songs that don't start on the tonic chord, then do leave them in the comments down below. And of course, a good place to find a whole bunch of songs that don't start on their tonic chord is my video on songs that manage to go their entire runtime without ever going to the tonic chord. So if you've not seen that video, then check it out with the link down below.